Question 2.2. Figure 6 shows that the maximum initial rate of reaction when a competitive inhibitor was present is different from when a non-competitive inhibitor was present. So curve C. If we look back at our graph, we can see that curve B is much higher than curve C, and curve C levels off at a much earlier point. So our question would like us to explain this difference. So it's the idea that with a competitive inhibitor, then the substrate is going to bind to the active site of the enzyme, but with a non-competitive inhibitor, it will bind away from the active site in the allosteric site. With a competitive inhibitor, you find that the substrate and the inhibitor are similar shapes, so they will be able to bind to the active site. With a competitive inhibitor, it does not cause the change in shape of the active site. It will form an enzyme inhibitor complex, but it will not change the shape of the active site. With a non-competitive inhibitor, this does change the shape of the active site. So with a competitive inhibitor, when there is a high concentration of substrate, then there is still enzyme that is available, so therefore reactions are still going to happen. With a non-competitive inhibitor, the enzyme is no longer available because the active site is now no longer complementary to the substrate. So if you increase the substrate concentration, at a higher substrate concentration, you are much more likely to get a successful collision between an enzyme and a substrate than an enzyme and the competitive inhibitor. So therefore the rate of reaction is likely to continue to increase. But with the non-competitive inhibitor, because the active site has changed shape, even if you have more substrate added, the substrate is no longer complementary to the active site, therefore they will not fit together.